Every year, India's finance minister reads out one of the most important financial documents in Parliament. That document decides things like how much you would be taxed and what schemes you could benefit from.
Hi, I'm Kanishka Gupta and you're watching Budget Made Easy, a business standard series where we simplify all things budget for you. What happens when your shopping bill exceeds your debit card limit? Well, you may postpone that purchase or switch to your credit card if buying that item is really important. When the government spends more than it earns, it does something similar. Similarly, when the government's total expenditure or spending exceeds its total revenue, excluding borrowings, it is called fiscal deficit. And the government usually pays the deficit through loans from either the RBI or raising money from capital markets by issuing different instruments like treasury bills and bonds. But how does fiscal deficit happen? Well, this can happen in either case. Number one, when the government's actual income is less than what it had expected. Now, this is also known as revenue deficit. Number two is when there is a major hike in capital expenditure, meaning a country sees a sudden uptick in big developmental projects. But fiscal deficit is not all bad. In fact, as long as it is manageable, it is a sign of the country's growth. Now let's look at this headline. Interim Budget 2024 expectations, government to target fiscal deficit at 5.3% of GDP for FY 2025, says ICRA. Now this means the Indian government is aiming to exceed its spending by an amount equivalent to 5.3% of its GDP, indicating it may require borrowing to cover expenses. However, do not confuse fiscal deficit with trade deficit. Fiscal deficit is when a country spends more than it makes. Trade deficit is when a country imports more than it exports. Similarly, this year you will witness two budget sessions and both have their unique significance. What is that? We'll talk about in a coming episode. Until then, share and subscribe to our channel if you liked it and don't want to miss out on our budget coverage.